My next guest, Rip Esselstyn, he's a world-class professional triathlete turned firefighter, and he is also the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Engine 2 Diet, the Texas Firefighter's 28-day Save Your Life plan that lowers cholesterol and burns away the pounds. And the website is engine2.org. Welcome to Go Vegan with Bob Linden, Rip Esselstyn. How are you today?
Hey, doing very well, Bob. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for your passion for what you do and everything you're doing to get people on board this program.
Mm-hmm. Well, now tell us what developed in Austin, Texas, with you to where you would write this book. How did this come about?
Well, in 2003, we had a bet out on the front porch to see who had the lowest cholesterol level, and that little benign bet turned into a revelation that one of my firefighting brothers had a cholesterol at the age of 33 of 344 milligrams per deciliter, which is
a heart attack in the making, it sounds like.
It puts him at death's door. It seriously does. And, you know, the leading cause of death of firefighters on the job is heart attacks. You know, we go from 0 to 100 in about 5 or 6 minutes. So, yeah, he was basically knocking at death's door. He had a horrible family history of heart disease. And to boot, he was a third-generation redneck, and he ate redneck. If it didn't have a face or a mother, and if it wasn't meat and preferably deep-fried, he didn't want to touch it. So we went about transforming him and the rest of the station, and in 3 weeks he brought his cholesterol down to 196. Yeah, the local newspaper got a whiff of what we were doing at Station 2, and the Associated Press caught wind of it, and then the New York Times, and next thing you know, I was contacted by some literary agents to write the book, and I did, and it's been an absolute blast. So
you won the cholesterol contest that day at the Firehouse, I take it?
Usually I always do. Although it's funny, now that some of the other guys have been eating this way, there's one of the guys that actually, his is lower than mine now. His at the last test was 110.
Wow.
110. And mine at the last test was about 129.
Oh, yeah. So, and did you find most of the other firefighters were in an equally poor position, high cholesterol? And
Oh, yeah. Just about everybody. Listen, when you eat, the 4 major food groups of firefighters are pizza, preferably with all the cheese, double meat, burgers, in Texas, fajitas, maybe in California it's strip steaks or something like that, and then Bluebell ice cream. So, you know, once you get rid of those, you know, horrendous foods and substitute them with plant delicious fare of fruit, vegetables, whole grains, and beans, it's incredible what your cholesterol will do, your weight loss, sleep, IBS, diverticulitis, everything just improves. And so all these guys, their health just improved by leaps and bounds. And it's amazing. You know, we have over 1,000 firefighters here in the Austin Fire Department, and this was in 2003 that we had this initial bet, and now it's 2009, and I'd say of the 1,000 firefighters, we have close to 150 that are now eating this way throughout the department.
Wow, that is amazing. So,
oh yeah. So it is spread like wildfire from our little station of 5 guys throughout the department.
Now, you said something that I found shocking is that so many firefighters have heart attacks on the job. Is that I didn't know that. Of
all the professions in the world, the profession that has the greatest incidence of death on the job are firefighters, death on the job by heart attacks. Yeah.
And one would think it's out of fear or something, but I guess if you have cholesterol levels of, you know, approaching 400, that pretty much works against you also.
Well, keep in mind, unfortunately, most firefighters are very representative of America at large. So you have about probably close to 70% of firefighters that are overweight. And then they're also eating not only the standard American diet of, you know, meat, dairy, eggs, and refined processed foods, but firehouses are also the dumping ground of all of America's leftover, you know, basically toxic leftovers. So we get Girl Scout cookies, we get dead pizzas, we get, you know, we get cookies galore. And, you know, you're nervous, you're waiting for the next call. You know, you gravitate towards a refrigerator and food, and if it's around, you know, a lot of times the guys, they can't help themselves. And then, you know, just by
you usually think of them in being in really good shape, able to, you know, like run, you know, knock down brick walls and, you know, just really being strong and in good shape.
Well, you have, listen, depending upon where you are and if the peer pressure is proper, you have pockets of stations throughout the country where they make it a priority, their health and their fitness. But unfortunately, you also have your firefighters that don't take care of themselves and don't make health and fitness a priority like they should.
I see that you were the enlightened firefighter there, Rip, and I might guess next Sunday is also Father's Day, and I think your dad's going to be attending also, and also speaking. And was he the one that perhaps influenced you to be the enlightened firefighter who could help your comrades that way?
Perhaps he was. Yes, very much so. He has.
Well, this is Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who's been on our program. His book is Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, and with the Cleveland Clinic has really could be considered the foremost heart specialist in the world with what he's done and really bringing people back from their deathbeds.
Well, yes, and keep in mind he was not a cardiologist himself. He was a general surgeon that decided to try and show that basically through plant-based nutrition you could not only help but reverse heart disease. And he started his crusade and mission back in 1984. And I didn't really start eating this way for a combination of health and performance reasons until 1986. And keep in mind that I decided then and there to eat this way not only for health but also for performance, because for 12 years I competed as a professional triathlete around the globe.
Mm-hmm. And a triathlete does what?
Well, a triathlete does 3 sports: swimming, biking, running, in that order, and it's varying distances from shorter triathlons to the Hawaii Ironman triathlon, which is a crazy 2.5 mile ocean swim and a 112-mile bike, and then a marathon on the very, very end to cap it off. Yeah, my father has just done such amazing things in this field, and he has been such a hero of mine and an inspiration. It's tough to go completely against the grain and what other people in your field are doing, but he had the wherewithal, the vision, and the courage to embark on his journey back in 1984, and now it's becoming much more accepted that maybe if I decide to change what I put in my mouth, I can change my health. Back then it was considered totally radical, and now it's much more accepted.
And he came on my show and said, nobody has to have heart disease. I had T. Colin Campbell on the show, and he says 90% of disease is caused by animal protein, meat and dairy. So we have maybe a minute left. I just wanted to see if there was anything you wanted to talk about before we meet with the public next week.
Sure, Bob. Yeah. I'd like to say that, the Engine 2 diet, I call it a diet, but I want to say to you right now that diets are dead, and I think Americans are catching on that diets don't work. They're short-term. If you continue to eat the disease-promoting foods just in smaller quantities, that's really not getting to the heart of the problem. The heart of getting to the problem is changing what you put in your mouth and putting in plant-strong, health-promoting foods that give you health from the inside out, cleaning out your blood, your arteries, your cells at a molecular and a biochemical level. And then a natural byproduct by consuming these nutrient-dense, calorie-light foods is permanent and sustained weight loss. And then, of course, you take care of the planet, you take care of the animals. It just makes sense on so many wonderful levels. So
yeah, and we love firefighters, Rip. That's the whole thing. They are really true heroes, and we want them to be healthy. So this is a great service that you're performing to bring this to the public. Yeah.
And then if I could lastly say that if anybody wants to join the engine2academy.com, it's a great support website with a great community, a forum, downloadable recipes, meal plans, grocery lists to make everybody's plant-strong journey a little easier.
Thanks for being with us today, Rip Esselstyn.